Hello everybody, and welcome to the Vomitorium weekday show for the 5th of August, 2021. As always, I am your host, The Metal, and for some reason, I don't know where Marsupial is today. Sorry. He appears to have been on the computer. He was in the Discord earlier on, and during the setup time, he just never jumped into the call. So we're just going to wing this as best as possible. I'm kind of tired today. I woke up way earlier than usual, but I think I got enough sleep. I don't know. I'm assuming that he probably stressed himself at it again, got fatigued, and passed out. Things like that happen. One day you think you're feeling good, the next day, badoofka. So, today, I guess I'm all on my own, unless somebody else in the Discord wants to jump in. I will have the, what's it called? I will have the screen up in case anybody wants to jump in the waiting room. And I'll just get started talking about things. So, one of the things that today has gotten me kind of excited is that I saw that one of my favorite shows of all time just got renewed for quite a big contract, actually, and that's South Park. So apparently South Park is getting 5 more seasons at the very least and 14 new movies, which is fucking insane. The contract is apparently worth about $900 million, and this will see them making it all the way to season 30. Now, this excites me because South Park is one of the very few programs that in the entirety of it running, I cannot think of a time where it has dipped in quality. Part of it is the fact that the people who run it actually care about the show. A lot of these other shows that have been running for longer or even the same amount of time. Are you flying solo tonight? Yes, apparently I am. Because Marsupial never showed up. And never gave me a warning that he wasn't going to. So I already had everything running. But compared to peers of South Park, let's say Family Guy's been running for just about as long. Simpsons has been running since longer, but you'd throw it in the same category. Their creators cared about it for like the first few seasons or so, and then over time just stopped caring. Maybe they'd remain a voice or something on there, maybe they'd be a showrunner, but they would allow other people to do the majority of the writing and then just kind of feather off. South Park, on the other hand, the true creators, Matt and Trey, have been working pretty hard on it from the very beginning and have never stopped working hard on it. In fact, they kind of have this process where they only ever work on an episode the week before the episode comes out, sometimes to the wire of when the episode's going to air. And part of that keeps it fresh and topical, puts a lot of stress on them, which means they're always innovating and coming up with new ideas, as opposed to people who spend like the whole summer or even up to the year before the season comes out making it, and it could remain somewhat topical, but they'll lose flavor across the course of a season, especially if something new comes out that kind of contradicts what they already did. They're always witty, they're always fresh, and I'm really excited to see the rest of the show. I've been kind of disappointed that there really hasn't been any South Park this season, though. As far as I'm aware, it has only been the last, 2 episodes, right? There were 2 specials, and that's the season. Yeah, Matt Groening did stop caring about Simpsons after he launched Futurama. There's a few different reasons for that, but a lot of it probably had to do with the fact that he lost the rights to Fox. I'm trying to remember where my train of thought was. Yeah, so, well, I'm excited for South Park, even though we've only had these 2 specials, which were almost like TV movies because they were like an hour long. I want to see what they're going to do, especially with the way the world has been. One thing about South Park is its social commentary has always been like on the spot. Probably because the creators don't give a shit about anything, really. So they'll say anything about anything as long as the network lets them get away with it, and they'll push that to the extreme. There's even like an episode or 2 that won't air anymore. One of them because they showed Muhammad on it. I forgot what the other one isn't, but there's like there's a handful of episodes that won't even air because, or re-air because they pushed it to the very edge of what they couldn't do. And now they're going to get 14 movies. And I'm wondering what the release schedule for that, because apparently 2 new movies will be made for Paramount Plus every single year starting in this year. And that's a lot to make in a very short amount of time, while also having seasons of the show having to air. Now, they have time to make it outside of the season since, like I said, they only work on the season or on each individual episode for the week it's going to air. So that gives them like half the year to work on movies and such. But knowing them, they probably won't spend that whole half the year working on movies because they'll probably want the movies to be topical as well. And, let's see. In this social atmosphere, the fact that they haven't dropped their Who from Comedy Central. The thing is, I don't think Comedy Central can afford to drop them. They are still a business, first and foremost, and the amount of money that South Park brings in is what lets them do all their other cringy things they put on there. So, I think that's the only reason South Park's been allowed to live this long. It just makes too much money. And that's honestly a good thing, that it makes too much money. But they've been running since 97, which is a long fucking time to run. And 14 movies is a lot to do in the course of what I'm guessing is 7 years, if they're doing 2 a year. And, I don't know, I'm excited. I really like the show. It'd be nice to have somebody on to talk about with it. Like I said earlier in the intro, if somebody would like to come on, I do have the Discord open. Links are in the description. We do accept callers, just nobody's ever in the waiting room for me to pull in. Or normally, you know, I'll have a good enough conversation with my co-host who also went from asleep to dropping out of the Discord. So this might even just be a short show today. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. But I really like South Park. They've kind of left us on quite a big cliffhanger. Because, I don't think there's been anything since the vaccination special. But the last thing we saw is the boys actually just broke up, right? Like, they've been friends for a really long time, and the band is put with them, like, thinking about who's going to have custody of Kenny and, like, doing a rotation thing and everything. And I'm wondering how the show is going to handle that. Probably great, because these guys are basically prodigies when it comes to humor, especially of the dark variety. And on top of that, not only are we getting 5 more seasons and 14 movies, there is also rumor that there is going to be a South Park game from the series creator in development. I don't know. I'm assuming it's not in line with the Stick of Truth and the Fractured Butthole. Because from what I'm seeing, is the rumor is that it's a 3D video game set in the world of South Park. Which we have not had one of those in a long time. I don't remember if any came out during the later era, but I remember, I think it was like the 64 era, there was a South Park video game that was kind of 3D. It doesn't really even say what the game is particularly about. Either, like, I've been reading through this. It's very vague, just that one is coming. But knowing them, they'll probably tie it into everything. One of the things I really liked about the Stick of Truth and the Fractured Butthole is that they were standalone stories, but they included elements of the show. Stick of Truth being elements of the most recent season before that, which was like the Game of Thrones season. But the Fractured Butthole bringing back a lot of the superhero stuff from... God, what was this? I think it was like season 20 or something. It wasn't too recent, but it was a bit back, right? So maybe it was season 17 or 18. But used a lot of elements of the superhero stuff because of all of the MCU stuff had been very, very recent, that they figured, why not parody that? Have like a Civil War thing. And it was cool because none of the stuff, it's like a parallel universe to South Park, where while the things in the show prior to it did happen, the things in the game do not affect the stuff of the show. So it's kind of just like a spin-off standalone experience you get with your little OC that you throw in there. And I'm wondering how the video game will interact. This new one, this 3D one, this is supposed to take place in the world. I want to say in the same way, it's probably just going to be like a virtual spin-off, not impacting the show whatsoever. Likely because they realize that much of their TV audience is not necessarily the same as the gaming audience. But the gaming audience is probably entirely also their viewership. So it's like a fraction of it. I'm not sure. But I'm excited. I really like South Park. I can't wait for the new season to start up. I don't know when it's going to be. I'm assuming fall of this year, but you know how things are. I would like them to actually just say that this is the same season continuing on, instead of just like segmenting it from the previous two, because it would suck a lot if the 2 specials were just a whole season and then they skip to the next one. I hate the way that TV shows in general are handling seasons these days. Especially, like, a lot of them will be maybe 8 episodes, 6 episodes. The actual last full season of South Park made fun of that when they had a, like, season finale that was actually halfway through the season, and I cracked up. I'm like, what? This can't be the end. This has only been, like, 6 episodes, and then I looked up the contract and the episode list, and like, oh, okay, they're making fun of shows that only have 6 episode seasons. That's fun. I liked that. They always have such a good sense of humor, not just in the, like, societal frame, but also, like, in the meta frame for animation. They were doing that in the vaccination special as well, where they, as the showrunners, were the main bad guys in the special. I thought that was really cool. And Mr. Garrison even, like, came back and solved the problem by cutting a deal with the showrunners. That was like the most meta moment in the history of South Park, and that's saying something because there have been a lot of like fourth wall breaking meta moments in the history of South Park. You can't even count them all on each digit of your body. It'd be rough to have a top 10 list, but I thought that was probably one of the best ones. That was really cool. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't think I have much to talk about that without somebody else coming on, so I guess I'll move into the next topic that I have. I don't know if I'm going to make an hour. There's not a lot of cool things to talk about today. But there was a new trailer for Cobra Kai Season 4. Cobra Kai is another show. Yes, I am the only one on today. If anyone would like to harass Marsupial Gamer, I would fully endorse this. He's not coming on the show. No matter how much you harass him today, I'm fairly certain, but you should still harass him anyway. That's just on me. You could tell him I told you to. Squeakers, if you'd like to come on, you can. I'd move anybody at this point out of the waiting room and into the show. But in the meantime, Cobra Kai Season 4 had just got a new trailer and a release window for when it's coming out. Cobra Kai is another show that I have been enjoying because it has a very good sense of humor and really hasn't been censoring itself, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It still feels kind of like an 80s property. And I've been enjoying that. Got some food cooking. You'll hop on later. Hey, I see Marsupial in the Discord now. Maybe he'll hop on. We'll see. I know he likes Cobra Kai and probably wants to talk about this. In the meantime, it's been a while since I think we had a season of Cobra Kai, right? It got pushed back due to the pandemic, but apparently they wrapped up filming the season in May and have just been like editing since then. And it looks like we're looking at December. December is the release window that show is looking at, which is good. Hey, you're here.
Hey.
Hey.
I'm sorry.
I'm putting you on. I had myself maximized. Yeah, you left me hanging for like 15 minutes. What's up with that?
I'm sorry. I fell asleep.
I figured.
I heard Cobra.
Harass you.
Yeah, I heard Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I just finished talking about South Park and then moved on to Cobra Kai because talking by myself, it took me stretching it 15 minutes to talk about that subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was excited. South Park just got renewed for 5 more seasons, 14 movies, and is possibly getting another game.
14?
Yes,
movies?
2 movies a year on Paramount Plus.
What the hell?
Yeah, it's a $900 million contract.
I saw that. I saw there was a big contract. I didn't see. I guess I saw that there was something about 14 movies, but I didn't realize it was 14 South Park movies.
Yes, 14 South Park
how
movies.
Do they have that many ideas?
Oh, how do they have that many? Have you not seen South Park? And the fact that it's running to season 25 now and then just got renewed all the way to season 30.
Oh my god. It's like The Simpsons. It's never going to end.
Yeah, except it's better because the original showrunners are still on it and they force themselves to work on each episode the week beforehand, so they're always topical and, having to innovate, cutting up to the wire.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I actually didn't bring up that I thought was funny is that they said, we're in our 40s now. I don't think we're still going to be doing this in our 50s. Jumping all the way to season 30 is going to be cutting it very close to be doing it in their 50s.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How
Maybe
really is it?
this is their final contract, right? Maybe like this is it.
Yeah.
This is all we're doing, or maybe they've changed their mind.
Yeah, I guess they must be.
Yeah.
They must have. They must have. I mean, $900 million will change your mind pretty quick.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Do you watch?
I only occasionally.
Sporadic.
I saw the pandemic special.
Did you watch
I
the
don't- I
vaccination
don't-
special?
No, I haven't seen.
Oh,
that
that was
yet.
even better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You should at least watch that one.
Yeah. Like whenever they have special episodes, or people say, "Oh, this or that episode was especially good," I'll go watch it.
I catch every single episode of South Park.
And it's still good.
It's still good. I don't think it's dipped in quality. Some people have, but a lot of the people who I think dip in quality, they complain about their humor. And I think that it's because their sense of humor has changed. They've grown apart. But to me, it still feels the same as it ever has. In fact, sometimes I think they're getting funnier each year.
I remember a girl in college showed me the original Christmas special.
Oh, yeah. The little
And she was
VHS that
like-
they used to pass around Hollywood that eventually made it to TV.
Yeah. And this was, I guess, after it had become a show. And she showed it to me, and she's like, "I don't understand how this could be a show." She's like, "Apparently, this is like actually a show now." I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah, it
weird.
was Jesus versus Santa Claus was the original
Yeah.
special. That was great. I don't know how it
Yes,
took them so long to get greenlit for a show. Apparently, that VHS was traveling around for quite some time until it hit the right eyes.
Yeah, I guess so.
If I saw that, I would have like greenlit right away. Just, you guys got a show.
Well, I guess it must have gotten to Comedy Central or something.
Yeah. Well, Sketchbook brought up earlier, he's surprised that it's still going given the way that Comedy Central has turned. But
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
what I
I'm
said,
surprised.
and I think this is what everybody agrees on, their show is the only reason Comedy Central is still running. It makes the most money out of anything on the network, and it basically subsidizes all the other retarded shit they do on the network.
Yeah.
So much so that they're willing to throw $900 million at them. Like, Paramount's not joking. They know how this stuff works.
Yeah, they know which side their bread's buttered on. That's for
Yeah.
sure. They must.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But the subject that you probably would prefer to talk about more as you came walking into Cobra Kai, Season 4.
Oh, not necessarily.
Oh, I thought you were liking Cobra Kai.
No, I do.
Yeah.
But I like South Park. I mean,
Oh, okay.
yeah. It's just one of those things that's kind of fallen off the map for me. But
See,
yeah.
you should actually, if you don't know that it stayed as good, you should take the time. It doesn't take that long, and just go and watch through the last season of South Park, and you'll realize it's like, oh, this is just like it was a decade or 2 decades ago.
Yeah. I just, I know they've changed like a lot of, I think Mr. Garrison still the president?
No, the vaccination special. Well,
Yes,
he actually, because he lost the election.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
He was supposed to be Trump.
Yeah, he returned to town, and even in the special that you watched, there were some problems with that. But in the next special, the vaccination, he's trying to live like a normal life, but everybody's treating him like, he was the guy that they blame for everything. So he
Mhm.
goes on like a quest to make everything normal again, and it's actually a great special. That's the whole point of watching the special. But it's things change and they go back, and everything about South Park is that it is constant change,
Yeah.
as opposed to like all of these other shows where it's like everything just resets to zero at the end,
Hmm.
which they used to make fun of with Kenny's death all the time, was that every show resets to zero and starts over.
Yeah.
Even though they've still been they started in like the 3rd grade, then they moved to the 4th grade. They're still in the 4th grade forever, but the show treats everything that happened in the past as if it happened. So everything about South Park is constant change.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a period of time where Kenny stayed dead
Yeah.
for a while. And then I guess they changed their minds on that.
Yeah, I think that was reverted in the South Park movie for the first time, and then they came back, and now they just play with it as they feel.
Well, I guess that's when they stopped having him die in every episode.
Yeah. Now he may or may not. He actually is a super.
Yeah.
He was confirmed that his ability to come back is a superpower.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He actually. So this happened back in the the superhero arc, which I can't remember what season. I think it was like 17 or 18. But it was years ago, and every time he dies in the middle of the night, the next day, his mother rebirths him. Like as a baby, and he grows up overnight back to what he was. And his powers are like tied to like Cthulhu and the world he comes from and stuff. And it's not quite understood, but now he's like, oh, they actually decided there is some mystical property to why Kenny keeps coming back. And he's aware of it. And apparently, I think his mom has to be aware of it too, like his parents, because they experience this every single night. But nobody in town remembers that he died. Like, they have amnesia of it happening.
Oh, well. It's funny.
It was great. When he was playing a superhero, because he was like the question mark or something like that. It was like some parody of like Rorschach meets the Question and stuff like that.
Yeah, and he he talks.
Yeah, he was actually talking that whole season.
Yeah.
I mean, technically he does always talk. It's Trey Parker, and he's got his hands and so he actually is saying lines. He has written lines for Kenny and stuff. He just Mysterion, that was it. And he just covers up his mouth and muffles it.
Right.
Yeah.
Mysterion.
And he talked like this the entire time, with his deep internal monologues. Nobody else understands why I keep coming back. The pain of being immortal.
I totally missed that arc.
Yeah, and Cartman was the coon.
I knew that. So, what's going on with Cobra Kai?
It's actually coming back around. They finished filming in May.
Finally.
Right? So all the actual filming is finished. Obviously, the pandemic pushed a lot of shit back. Everybody understands that. And they are in the process of editing. It's in the final bit. And it should be airing. Oh, shoot. The song in the background is the same as my ringtone, and I thought my phone was going off for a second.
Oh.
Yeah, but it should be released in December of this year. So we are actually going to get it this year, which is cool.
So that's, a typical... I mean, the last one came out last December, right?
Yeah, after some delays. But that initial delay was because Netflix just got the property.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it used to be in April, but both seasons that aired in April, that was back on YouTube Red and not Netflix. So a lot of, the delays when it comes to the show have all been understandable. I don't think anybody who's been paying attention really has the right to complain about how long it's been taking.
Well, no, I'm saying it's, it's been a year. It will have been a year. So, I mean, I think people are used to that. I mean, although, usually Netflix seasons come out twice a year or something like
Sometimes,
that.
right? Sometimes it's a year.
But
The fact that they're releasing full seasons, it makes even more sense that it's a year. Like The Witcher, they consider that a full season. I think Cobra Kai is actually more of a full season than The Witcher was, but The Witcher is going to be a year from when it aired as well. And these higher budget, longer season shows, it makes sense. It's every year. That's about a TV show. We'll see you next fall.
yeah. So, is there any word on the plot? I guess there's. Well, I mean, no. Wait, last time, Daniel-san went to Japan, right?
Yes. Well, that's not how it ended, though. Right? We actually kind of know what the plot's going to be. I don't think they have to tell you. They talk about it, but we kind of know. At the very end of the show, while they originally were practicing in the park, the I forget what the name of their dojo is. It's like the something Eagle Dojo or something, because eagles are badass, right?
Eagle Fang.
Yeah, Eagle Fang, but eagles don't have fangs.
Eagle Fang.
The Eagle Fang joined up with Miyagi-Do, and they were both in the backyard.
Yeah.
And you have Daniel-san and Johnny together, standing there ready to teach, and they're going to have to confront Kreese's dojo directly because he's in charge of Cobra Kai again, and helping possibly getting Cobra Kai back in the hands of Johnny, because like it or lump it, Cobra Kai, aside from the few miscreants, actually was a positive effect on some people's lives, on Johnny's lives, and even the community. And it is in much worse hands having Kreese in charge. So we kind of know what the plot's going to be in the next season.
And now Johnny's son is in Cobra Kai, right?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, he just joined Kreese.
Trying to remember. Yeah, interesting.
And I believe at the party, Hawk turned on Cobra Kai.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's
Finally.
now on what you'd consider the good team too.
Yeah. That was a bit of a. I mean.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It happened kind of fast for how long he'd been. Because, like, anytime I tell people this in storytelling, it's like stretching a rubber band back. And the longer you stretch it back, the more satisfying the snap has to be when something climaxes, when there's some revelation.
Yeah.
And it's something that should have happened. I just don't think the snap was hard enough.
Yeah. Yeah, his whole character is a bit over the top, and his whole storyline is a bit over the top. Like, he just kind of turned into this crazy person.
Yeah.
And then just kind of did a 180 at the last.
I like his character, though.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. He certainly flipped the script, and nobody's talking about his lip anymore.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Especially that tattoo on his back.
Yeah.
But I think I hope it's good. Though I didn't dislike the last season. I think the second season I had complaints because they spent a little too much time on the kids, and then left us in a cliffhanger that was pretty bad. It didn't actually wrap up an arc. The third season, I think, actually did wrap up the arc. We did see many of people's character arcs of that 2-season drama kind of come to an end, especially talking about Hawk finally coming back to being on the good side. So that was more satisfying. I don't mind how much time they spent on the kids compared to the adults. Actually, I feel like in this one they spent more time on the adults than the kids, and that's probably how it should have been. It felt more evenly handed. I liked season 3 more than 2. So it seems like this next... Hopefully it's the final arc of the show, because I really don't want to see the show going on forever. I think it would be bad for it. I don't know how many seasons it's going to take this final arc to happen. If it's another 2 seasons, it's fine. I think a 5-season show would be a good closer for it. If they manage to do it in 1, that's fine too, because it seems like we're going back to the Hill Valley championship, right? Like the All Valley tournament is going to probably be the climax of this next arc again. So, they'll probably do it fine. I think the show has been running perfectly fine from the start, so I have faith it's probably going to be a good season.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I saw like they did like an interview with the actors, and they seem all very genuine and excited to be a part of it and all this stuff. Elizabeth Shue was in. Is that who it was? Or yeah, I think so. Was excited to be back on the show and stuff. So yeah. I think it's
names.
Yeah, I think when people are like genuinely in it for
the art, they're making a fun
the
movie
show
or something, or anything like that. Yeah,
I think that's good, and it seems like now I don't know who the writers are.
I know the director is Josh Heald. He's been the showrunner for a while. So I think that's good as long as we have the same showrunner from the beginning. Obviously, you get individual directors for episodes and stuff. They always bring people on for things. But if you have a consistent showrunner, even having different directors, you'll get a consistent feel throughout the show.
Yeah, and I feel like hopefully I don't know if it's good or not if the actors have input on how the show goes and how their characters would act.
Right. Like, I think if you've been playing a character for a really long time, which is more for the role of Daniel than, say, Johnny, because he really didn't play the character as long and only just started playing the character again when it came back. But they've been doing it for several seasons now, so that helps. If you've been playing a character for a long time, if you're a good actor, you were trying to embody that character from the beginning. You're trying to figure out what makes that character tick. So if you come back to playing the character again, you might actually know more about that character than, say, some of the other people working on it, the writers or the director. You don't want to go against the script, but you might interpret it differently. Like, I don't know, I've been playing this guy for a while, and I really feel like this is the way he would handle it emotionally and stuff like that, right? That's why it's good to have a consistent person playing a character, because you're trying to embody. It's almost like, it's role play. You're getting into that role.
Yeah.
So I'm also really excited for these young actors, right? Because a lot of these shows that I've been seeing, a lot of these different series and stuff, probably horrible areas to get the start of your career in the current environment. They're probably going to end up not learning the ropes properly, jumping from show to show, maybe even being spoiled, being like your average Hollywood person. A lot of the people in this show, like the older people that were part of the original Karate Kid series, seem like really down-to-earth people, like actors used to be a long time ago. And hopefully it's rubbing off on these newer actors. I think this is probably a really good show to, cut your chops on, to really get into the industry, carry some of these practices for the rest of your career.
Yeah, there was some news. Oh, that's what it was. Apparently Zolo Maridueña, who plays Miguel Diaz, has been tapped to play Blue Beetle in some DC film. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
The most popular Blue Beetle is the Hispanic one, and I think he would actually handle that very well. So
yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, that matches. Like I think he'd be good for that role. So
I like Blue Beetle. It's a good character. I would like to see him pop up in something, and that would be a great actor to see play him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't actually barely or didn't really know about the character until I watched. Was it a movie? There was some DC. Yeah.
Well, I know he was somewhat prominent in one of the seasons of Young Justice.
Yeah, which I didn't really watch past season.
I'm trying to remember what movie he was in.
He was in one of the DC animated movies, the one where Damian becomes a Teen Titan. I forget.
Is it the one where Nightwing and Starfire are training them? Like they were the last generation, they're training the next generation of Teen Titans. I barely remember that one, but I kind of remember it.
Yeah, I'd have to. DC animated movie universe. I think the Teen Titans, the Judas Contract. Or no, Justice League versus Teen Titans. That's the one. Yeah, that's the one. And I watched a bunch of those movies back to back. So that's the one where Damian is sent to join the Teen Titans.
Yeah.
And Starfire is older, and Nightwing is older. But for some reason, like, Raven is...
Yeah, it's their
younger.
Weird animated universe continuity. I don't get it, but, you know, whatever.
Yeah, Raven and Beast Boy are younger. They're Damian's age. So they're basically being taught by Starfire.
Yeah,
But,
I think it's because they like
That's
that
fine.
weird romance idea between Damian and Raven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought, she'd end up with Beast Boy or something. Who knows? Poor Beast Boy.
I'm a little indifferent with who she ends up. Like, I'm not a shipper or anything. I tend to ship with canon because I respect the writer's opinion on things for the most part, unless they're like new writers who are ruining things. But God, Damian is just such a bad choice for almost anyone. At least at the current point in his character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the movie, he becomes... I mean, he's still kind of a troublemaker, but he becomes a team player. That was the whole point of the movie.
Damian is my least favorite Robin.
Oh,
And
really?
that's considering the fact that Jason Todd exists.
What's wrong with Damian? It's too much.
Everything.
Too much of a loose cannon. Is that it?
No, okay. Damian is the epitome of everything that's been wrong with Batman for like the last decade or so, right? You know the Bat Factor that everybody talks about? It's like Batman's plot armor that basically lets him get away with everything. Damian has that turned up to 11, and it's basically his whole character. Which means, aside from being a troublemaker with plot armor, Damian doesn't really have a character.
Yeah. I mean, almost all main characters have total plot armor, don't they?
Not like Batman. Okay. Batman's plot armor is so bad that there is literally a trope nickname for it called Bat Factor. And this is kind of like also where it comes from, like, Batman. It was a fucking crossover event too, where one of the writers said it between, like, the crossover Marvel, where this all started, where it's like, given enough prep time, Batman can beat anyone. No, there are certain people that no amount of prep time, Batman just can't beat them. Like, it doesn't matter. There's nothing he could do about it in some cases. Yeah, Damian beat Nightwing in a fight before Bruce even started training him.
Yeah, that's odd.
Yeah. Fuck Damian. Horrible character. Should have never... Like, God, he should never existed. Fucking child of Bruce and Talia. Like, no. Get out of here.
Yeah, that's right. He was supposedly trained by the League of Shadows.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's not like he had no training.
Yeah, but to beat Nightwing of all people?
Yeah.
That's my
that was something weird. Like, even in the DC animated movies, it seemed like they totally nerfed Nightwing. Like, he he gets beaten way too easily.
Yeah.
Like, why is he
And,
so
like,
weak?
if you were to consider it, Nightwing. Oh, dude, I hated this about the Under the Red Hood too. Nightwing should be able to beat any other Robin in a fight, right? If you take gadgets away and it's just them fighting, Nightwing should win.
Yeah. Damien's conception was non-conceptual, or non-consensual.
Non-consensual, I think is what he means, because it actually was non-consensual.
Yeah, what happened? Did she drug Batman?
Bat rape. Fuck Damien, I hate that character so much. Yeah. He was fine though in Super Sons, because Super Sons was written by a competent writer that actually gave him a personality, and there wasn't a lot of plot armor in that series at all. I can actually agree with anybody who likes that iteration of the character. Both of the characters were good in that series. But both iterations of those characters in the Super Son series is not like how they are in the other series outside of it. It's almost like this non-canon spin-off thing of its own.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I wouldn't be against like the whole conception of the character.
Yeah.
The whole idea of the character. It's just he's been poorly written. Yeah. Which is a shame.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's rewind time to before he was born.
Yeah, let's rewind everything. Let's rewind all of comics like 5 or 6 years.
I want to. You know what? No, I'm gonna rewind comics back to the mid '80s, and then we can start from there. Again, there was some good stuff in the '90s, but if you're paying attention, that's kind of like when all of the bad shit that's bled over to now really started. So I'm not giving the '90s any second chances.
Yeah, I rewatched Batman Forever recently, which is a terrible movie, but
it's an enjoyably terrible movie. There's some redeemable aspects in it, but it is horrible.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when Robin first, discovers the Batcave and everything, he suggests being called Nightwing. I didn't even catch that, the first couple of times. Just until recently, I was rewatching. It was like, oh, he says I should be named Nightwing. I was like, oh, I didn't get that. Like, I don't think I knew about the character at the time, the last time I'd seen the movie, which would have been decades ago.
That's my problem. Is like, there's certain things I like about it, but there's things I hate. Like, what's his name? Chris O'Donnell. Way too old to be a Robin. Mm-hmm. Like, I understand, like, this is how they wrote the character. I would have preferred them to have written a younger character and actually have casted, like, a teenager or something in the role. That would have been cooler.
Yeah, they should have cast, at most, like, a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, possibly, like, a 13-year-old or something.
Instead of somebody who was, like, college age at the time.
Yeah.
I actually think Tommy Lee Jones was a great cast for Harvey Dent. That's one of the few compliments I have to give to the movie. He really sells Two-Face. I thought he was fine for that. But Jim Carrey as the Riddler was not a very wise choice.
I thought they were just both too goofy. Just way too goofy. And his little angel and devil girlfriends.
Yeah, well, I want to say that's directing. I think Tommy Lee Jones could have played a more serious Harvey Dent very easily, because he's good at playing both serious and goofy characters. You just tell him what to play. He's got a history of it.
Yeah.
He's really good at being the straight man when everybody else is goofy too. But my problem is, I don't think Jim Carrey would have been a good Riddler. Because a lot of it is they let him do what he wanted to do in that, if you watch like the behind the scenes stuff. And it was more like he was trying to be the Joker, like another Joker, but he was the Riddler.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hated that.
And his whole riddle, he gave him a whole bunch of riddles, and it was just basically his name.
Yeah.
Oh. Like, okay, what's even the point? That was kind of dumb. I didn't like his riddles.
You know, I've thought about that, Buck. I don't think it's awkward that in the movie right before that they cast a black man as Harvey Dent. The Black Harvey Dent was when, what's his face? Tim Burton was directing the movies, which don't actually share a continuity with the Joe Schumacher movie. They're not, they kind of, people think they're in the same series, but they aren't a continuity. They're just kind of like random snippets of Batman. So you could use them as a continuity, but it doesn't really matter. The only thing that's consistent is I believe they had the same Alfred in all of them, but
didn't they mention didn't they mention Vicky Vale in one of the other movies, but I don't remember if it was the Batman Returns or one of the other two. I don't remember.
But those movies, aside for the first two, which Burton made, himself, one after each other, the others do not share a direct continuity with each other. And that was something I was always hung up on for a really long time until I realized that.
Mm.
Now, if you want to make complaints from like Batman to Batman Returns with their continuity, that's fine because those movies were actually made to be a direct sequel. And I'm sure there are problems between those two alone.
Yeah. Well,
no, I still.
It didn't bother me.
Yeah, they're great.
It didn't bother me that they just cast a different actor. What's wrong with race swapping? There's nothing wrong with race swapping, right? But
I think most people didn't even notice they were supposed to be the same character, though, right? We're talking like half a decade had passed between the movies, and
and he was such a brief, just a very, very background character in the first one. And
I agree. Not casting Christopher Lloyd as Mr. Freeze was a lost opportunity, Flit. But no, they wanted Arnold.
Which, again, they made him way too over the top.
Yeah.
Like, Mr. Freeze is supposed to be kind of an understated character, right?
Kind of in the way he acts, but it's because everything else about him is already over the top. He's a man walking around inside this like thermal suit that keeps him cool, that he freezes everything. Like, if he was playing it like a straight man and still using the puns, nobody would care about the puns because they're like, oh, that's just Mr. Freeze.
Yeah. Plus, they didn't. Did they go into? Oh yeah, they did. They went into like his
whole
motivations
backstory and everything. Yeah. Well, he actually didn't have a sympathetic backstory until Batman the Animated Series, which is where they pulled that from. It also infected the comics later on. So you can actually blame Bruce Timm for why Mr. Freeze is a sympathetic villain.
Yeah, well, I think that was a brilliant move.
Yeah. I don't. Mr. Freeze was. I don't think he was that likable before that. Because like I went back and read some of the old comics. Like, he's a villain. I have no reason to really like him other than his aesthetic. But that.
Yeah. I was watching somebody talk about Gotham, the TV show. Have you watched that at all?
I tried, but it's kind of awful. So it was hard.
It was actually Literature Devil this morning on his show. They were talking about Gotham and the problem, and they were talking about the problem with Gotham. And the problem as they saw it, which makes a lot of sense to me, is that they've never been given like a green light for many seasons. It's always been one season at a time approved with an understanding that there's a high likelihood that it's going to get canceled after this season.
Should have been canceled after the first season.
Yeah, well, so every season, the problem was that every season they have had to treat it like this is the last one.
Yeah.
And so they, which can be good in that they have to wrap up whatever arcs, but like the problem is each season feels very samey from the previous ones. Like they have to keep doing the same tropes over and over again because they're just like, okay, we gotta treat this like the end. And it's weird. Like
My problem is, I think even if they were greenlit for many seasons, the show would still be shit because the premise is bad and a lot of the other things they were doing even within the first season was bad. It was a Batman show without Batman that was basically never going to fully lead into a Batman show. They had characters that, some of them whose backstories were intrinsic to Batman making the villain existing before he was even Batman.
Yeah. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah, no, this whole show was shit in conception. Throw it out.
Okay. Well, what they were complaining about specifically were things like the romance with with Selena and how they had to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Oh, they're together. Now they have a fight. Now they're apart. Now she's in with the bad guys. Now they're back together. And it's just like, that happened like several times. And it's just like, they can't have an overarching story arc because they don't know when it's just going to end.
In fact, I think the only villain whose story arc I even thought was appropriate in that whole show was the Penguin. And that's because in the comics, the Penguin is a much older person who wasn't always this deranged mobster. He was like a money mobster, like, you know, comes from a rich family and could have been around doing shady things long before Batman was on the table. So that was fine with me, and you know.
Yeah. I mean, he should have stayed. He should have become more of a main character.
The more things went on.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like that kind of had that. The problem was they didn't know how, or they didn't know when to wrap up his arc, or you know, because they're just like, I don't know, this could be the last season.
Yeah, Buck says that sounds like their relationship in the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can blame Tom King for that. At least the most recent portion. Batman and Selena's relationship in the comics have been very on and off, doing the same things over and over again. Actually, probably far before King was even the one dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, but in a show that's going to be only like, say, 6 or 7 seasons, you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over. You have to have some sort of overarching.
I would agree, and I think that should apply to the comics too, yet they do it anyway.
Yeah. I don't know.
I hated that show. It was like my problem with Arrow. It had all of the same problems I had with Arrow, which was also a Batman show without Batman, but at least they had a character who was a fitting stand-in for Batman, and that was Arrow. But, I mean, he's not like Ollie at all. I like Ollie. Ollie's a good character. Oliver Queen in that show is not the Green Arrow. They don't even call him the Green Arrow. He's just Arrow.
You don't think that Jim Gordon was a good enough stand-in for Batman?
I think he could have been, but he wasn't written as a good enough stand-in for Batman. And there are many problems with that. But,
see, I don't know what it seemed like at the end of whatever season I stopped watching, 4 maybe. Yeah. It seemed like he was going to become Batman. But I don't know what happened after that, because I stopped watching.
Well, I think it's the same thing, right? He was never supposed to be Batman. They would have saved the feeling of him going to be Batman for whatever the last season was. But it's like you bring up, if they keep thinking the show's going to end, you know, like, oh, well, maybe they didn't think they were being renewed after 4. Like, maybe they thought that was the hard cut, not even if, ands, or but. So they were putting that there, and it's like, oh, well, now we got to walk that back.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Basically, and I'm not even sure if it is season 4,
Yeah,
but
or whatever
let's
it
say
was
for the
last
sake
week.
of for the sake of argument, let's say it was. It felt like this is the last season, and now he's gonna, and then because they wrapped it up, and it's like, oh, now he's gonna become Batman, and I think they showed him in the maybe even in the costume at the end of the season, and then it felt like, oh, that was it. But then there was like another season. It's like, oh, whoops, and
Yeah. Well, you know, like
I don't know what happened after that.
statistically, most shows don't make it past season 1. That's just true. The next most likely milestone you'll hit is season 3. Right? Usually, if you make it to season 2, you're probably popular enough to make it to season 3. That's probably what's going to happen. So after shows that get cut at season 1, the next highest amount of shows don't make it past season 3. And then after that, honestly, if you make it past season 3, there's a half decent chance you might even make it to 10 or anywhere in between. It's about even each season from there. So it's like, got to make it past 1, got to make it past 3, and then who knows after that point.
Yeah, it's funny because like Star Trek series followed that pattern. Enterprise only made it 3 seasons, but I think Next Generation, DS9, and Voyager did 7. All of them did 7.
Yeah.
So it kind of became expected that they would do 7, and then Enterprise sucked, and they were like, we're only going to do 3
And
seasons
you have no
of
idea why you could get cut to. A show could be doing great and not make it past season 1. Likely because the type of audience watching it is the type of audience that doesn't buy anything. Merchandise, like the stuff being sold in ads. And the only thing that keeps you on air on traditional TV is if people are buying things, right? At least if they're buying their merchandise, then the people who are selling their ads to you are like, oh, well, that means that they're the type of people who will buy things, so we're going to put our ads on your show anyway. But even if it shows that, like, there's a huge peak in sales of a product, then they'll assume that people who are watching those shows that the product aired their ads on are the ones buying it, so that will also increase the ad value of those shows. But if neither of those things are happening, a show could be doing numbers. They could be just fucking killing it, and they'll still just cut the show after the season because they're not worth any ad revenue. Different thing on these streaming services, though. It's completely like flip the script on what gets something or not. It's almost entirely viewership since they're already being paid by the subscriptions.
Yeah, and I heard, well, I don't think it's true, but someone was talking about the He-Man show season 2 being in doubt. Seems like it's already in the can to me, but
yeah, because they had a great follow. I think it was episode 1 had huge numbers, 2 did okay, but then even by 3, it had just taken a huge dip downhill and did not recover the rest of the season.
And what I've heard is that A, people are not rewatching it a second time.
Yeah.
Because it was shit. And B, like, just like after the first week, it completely dropped off because, I mean, it definitely dropped off the top 10 because I think the initial people that watched it were just like telling everyone else, no, this is shit, don't watch it.
Yeah.
So it didn't last very long.
I know,
and I mean,
that is part of it when
sure
it comes to the views, is rewatchability lets them know whether it's like, oh, well, if people are rewatching this, it probably means that they're enjoying enough, they want to watch more, or they're expecting more and they're trying to like refresh their memory before the next season comes out.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I watched, maybe I didn't. I don't remember if I watched either Castlevania or Voltron a second time, or any of the seasons a second time. I might have rewatched the first season when the second season came out. I don't remember. But
I watched Cobra Kai multiple
definitely
times.
not rewatching He-Man. I don't know. Oh yeah, I did too, and I like watched it with my mom like a third time. I was like, this show is so awesome. I'd love to rewatch it. So.
Yeah.
Yes, that is what happens when you lie to the fan base and write a shit show, as Buck says. that has disturbingly similar message to a song titled "Let's Go Slaughter He-Man."
Never heard of that song.
Never.
Don't think I want to listen to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the title, it sounds like it. Yes, I seriously am thinking about whenever it comes out, getting a Tila doll just to like cut the head off.
Yeah. Well, it's like I was saying on the show is I wanted to go into it optimistic, but I was very, very certain that Kevin Smith was lying to us the whole time. So I'm really not surprised by anything that happened on that show.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised that He-Man just flat out died. Like, because the rumors were that he steps aside. He doesn't step aside. I know steps aside is a metaphor, but what do you call it? It could mean anything, but I didn't expect it to die.
Yeah.
Just flat out not be in the show at all. Like, not Adam.
Yeah. See, I thought either he was going to die at the beginning or at the end, or he would have metaphorically died at the beginning, as in he would have lost access to the powers and got it back at the end.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
He would lose the powers, but Adam would still be there.
But all of these were like equal possibilities to me.
Yeah. Crazy.
The thing is, Buck can tell you too.
But yeah,
I gave him, and I usually do this. Like, I never give them the benefit of the doubt. It's like they won't do this, but this is how they should do the show. And I gave him like the perfect scenario for how this show could have been good. But we knew this wasn't going to happen. I do this all the time when these shows come out. I was like, this is not what they're going to do. I have no faith in these writers, but this is how they should make the series.
I mean, anyone with half a brain could come up with a better. They could have had He-Man lose his powers, and Adam is the one who goes on this quest or whatever to recover the sword. And frankly, I would have been good with Tila dying in the first episode. If they want to have a character die, have her die.
Well, my thing was because instead of her being the first one to kind of like bitch off, right? Which is she kind of was the first one to bitch off before the Masters split up. What they should have done is they should have had her being the one that still had hope. So then when she does come back like to Adam or whatever, and he's like going on this like journey to defend Eternia, he can't do it by himself. So her half of the show, they should have like split it evenly if they were going to do it at all. Should have just been her going around recollecting the old Masters of the Universe and trying to get the band back together. That would have been a fun show. That still could have given her a very important role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Adam should have been the one leading.
Oh yeah.
The whole show.
Oh, he should have been back in Eternia fighting like Skeletor's army the whole time, struggling to do it, but still coming off with victories. Maybe some losses here and there until the others can show up to give him backup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would have been cool. Like, they did nothing. Here's the thing. Here's the part that I was really surprised at, because when they first showed that the sword was getting broken in two, I was expecting them to do something with that. They did nothing with it.
Nothing at all.
I'm like, there's such a lost opportunity. You've got two swords now. What?
There could have been two half-mans.
Well, I mean, one of the swords could have been, He-Man could have somehow gotten like some of his power back, and I was expecting the other sword would fall into the hands of Skeletor.
Yeah.
And that's what would give him the powers.
They could have been two half-mans that way, and they could have been struggling against each other.
Yeah, and that way you've got He-Man and Skeletor, and Skelegod, or whatever you want to call him. And they both got the swords, and then, that could have been a whole arc for the season 2. It was like getting the swords back together.
Instead, they had to make Skeletor an incel.
And kill off another character just to get the stupid sword back together.
Yeah, like Excuse me. I remember Skeletor having a very loving relationship with Evil Lyn. How can you tell me that nobody wants to fuck him?
Yeah.
That's why I hate most modern media. And also why I started this episode with talking about two things that I liked, because I figured we were going to get onto shit later on anyway.
Yeah.
Because I like South Park and I like Cobra Kai. There's very few good examples of good media coming out of, like, what I would say the legacy producers, right?
Yeah.
I get lots of good stuff on the internet. Internet's full of, like, well-made, not necessarily highly produced in some cases, but there are some that are highly produced, but just well-made, well-written content for you to absorb. And you could spend all day doing it and still not see, like, a fraction of what there is for you to enjoy. But, like, all these legacy producers are like, hey, you watch our TV, you know, just watch our movies, we're making stuff, we're still relevant. Go the fuck away. You can't make anything anymore. You guys have lost your edge.
Sorry, cut out for a minute there.
Oh, I said you guys lost your edge.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for them to ruin Thundar and the Herculoids. I'm sure that'll happen. And Silverhawks, they got to ruin that too.
Yeah. They would ruin it, but at this point, I don't give a shit. I still just want to see a live-action Wacky Races movie.
That's right. That sounds good.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's got to be better than that fucking stupid Speed Racer movie.
Yeah, I never actually saw that.
Yeah, you're better off.
I thought the previews looked kind of cool, actually, but yeah, I heard it was bad.
Because it didn't look like Speed Racer, aside from having the whole Mach 5. Like, the way the races functioned, it was more like Hot Wheels or something like that, you know?
It looked like Rainbow Road from
Yeah.
Mario Kart in the previews. I was like, whoa, that's like a lot of color. It's crazy, like the loop-de-loops and stuff, and I'm like, what the hell?
Now, if that director wanted to make a Wacky Races movie, I think that would have been a much more fitting property for what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem like Speed Racer. He's a demon on wheels.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Did he have a monkey in the truck?
Yeah. And his sister.
I barely remember that show. I don't know if I watched it very much. I think I've seen the parodies and the tropes and things, more than I've actually seen the original show.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain it was the first anime I ever watched. And I always forget that because I forget that Speed Racer's an anime that was poorly dubbed into English. Aha!
Yeah, it's a very, very 80s anime.
Yeah, but I love Speed Racer. I don't even want them to make another Speed Racer movie because at this point I can only assume it's going to be worse than the last one that was made.
Mm-hmm. You know how I can tell when a show is an anime? There was an interview, and I'm trying to remember who it was with. There's an interview with a voice actor on Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And he was explaining the difference between a regular, like an American anime or an American animation gasp.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta find this interview and a Japanese gasp. Yeah, in an American show, it's just an inhale.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. On a Japanese show, it's an exhale and an inhale. So you go, He's explaining the difference.
A lot of people don't understand this too, and it makes more sense if you actually watch it, these shows in Japanese with subtitles on. But Japanese is a very flat language normally. Like when people speak, they're normally saying like "Watashi wa Nihongo ga skoshi wakarimasu," and there's like almost no wave to their voice. It's like the same note all the way across, right? There's certain words that might peak up a little bit or lower. It's funny, the word for flat actually peaks up. So if you're trying to say Japanese is flat, that sentence itself isn't flat at the end. It's ironic, but for the most part, it's a very flat language. But when it comes to their animations, and even sometimes in their acting, and this throws a lot of people off because they don't think Japanese is a flat language, it's all about being overly expressive, like vaudeville never died for them, right?
Yeah.
And in many ways, for animation, they are far more expressive than we are over here, as wacky as cartoons can get. And you even have to sometimes match that when you're trying to be like a VO, doing like a dub for an anime. And things get kind of crazy. But part of the expression is because the language is so flat that to actually distinguish what's going on where you can only hear the voice, they used to do this in radio programs, you had to make the language less flat than it used to be, and you kind of become a little sing-songy, which is what they even refer to different languages. English, they call it sing-songy, especially Chinese, they call it sing-songy, like Mandarin, which I'm sure we would call sing-songy even by comparison if you've ever listened to somebody speak Mandarin, because their words just go up and down on intonation, like going wah hui shua potang wah. Right? It's just like, it's all over the place. And the nature of the language can actually really affect how people perform when it's only voice. They tend to go in like opposite dynamics to stand out.
Interesting.
Yeah. But, you know, with that, I think I'll call the show. I decided to go about as long after as you weren't here because we ended up recovering the same topic shortly anyway, and I'm just going to cut all of the portion that was just me.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, well, if you had taken even longer to the halfway part, I would have just been like, fuck it, I already covered half the show. But since it was only 15 minutes and we could push a little further, I'm like, whatever, we'll just say we started the podcast late and I was warming up the whole time. What?
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of like unnecessary gaps during the point where I was talking by myself as I was trying to think what I was going to say. Re-going back over, it was a lot smooth and you could interject. I thought it was better.
Yeah. Well, I gotta give you my phone number or something so you can like text me multiple times.
Yeah, you know, usually... you told me this like half a year ago and still never did it.
All right, fine.
No, though to be fair, half a year ago, I mean, weren't you recently having like problems recovering your phone number and shit like that?
I never did. Yeah, I just got a whole new phone number.
Yeah. So if you gave me the number from half a year ago, that still wouldn't have solved the problem now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but luckily this hasn't happened like hardly ever in 6 months.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, since you like changed your allergy stuff, it's like things are all over the place again. But
yeah.
If you enjoyed the show, please share it with somebody else who might like it. And if you really enjoy the show, consider donating to streamlabs.com/vomitorium live, and you can fill that little bar to get us to where I don't have to pay the monthly fees out of other shit that I do. And in the meantime, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.